later. It's a little secret. This guy's actually trying out for BYU Cosmo, but on top of that, yeah, this guy's freaking awesome. Yeah, we said that, but on top of it, I guess it's going to be shy if he doesn't make it now. Gaten did his first listing presentation this week, created his own PowerPoint, met with the clients all on his own, and handled everything himself. So guys, give him a shout out. Congratulations. This guy's crushing it.
That is awesome. Does anybody else have anything they want to? Okay, Kevin, I'll bring the microphone over here. Yep.
Buckfield Talina for bringing the microphone over here. There I was in a listing appointment. And they said to me, we want to move to Mapleton, but we're worried about buying in this market. And I went, no, how can I respond to such an objection, if even an objection this is? And then I remembered that Angie had set up the March Madness script off. I reached deep into my soul and I yanked forth the script that I had heard two experienced agents deliver, and I smacked this seller in the face with it. The charges are still pending, and I knew that I was at the greatest brokerage on earth.
Yes. That was amazing. Thank you, Kevin. Anybody else? Oh, one and only Jane Gray. Woo-hoo-hoo! She is here from St. George.
That's right. That's right. And I love coming here. You guys all know that. First of all, is Karen Delgado here? No. I wouldn't know if I saw her. So that's why. But she has been saving my bacon this week. And she's showing go-getter for me. So I have appreciated that so much. And I also want to tell everybody, thank you. Well, not all of you, because you're not all done it. But thank you for your referrals that down there in the South Utah County or South St. George.
St. George. Thank you, Jane Gray. She is a true gem. Okay, anybody else? All right, we'll move on. Okay, stand up if you, what, this isn't working. Okay, we're gonna have to hit the space bar. Okay, stand up if you had a closing last week. Here are the candy bars. Who had a closing? These are our closings from, oh, Riley, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, holy moly, we're gonna need some help. Dino's gonna bring those around, or Stephanie. Keep your hands up or stand up. Congratulations to our closings. Stay standing. Riley, I'm loving that shirt. Okay, congratulations. We'll see if there are, oh, all right, we have our birthdays for this week. Melissa Downs, if you don't know, she's like literally my BFF. She's been here for 6 years. Happy birthday to her on Monday. Carl Spencer, holy moly, and Ben have the same birthday on Thursday. Lucy and Lorenzo on the 26th, and Micah and Scott Heaton on the 27th. Happy birthday. Okay, we're going to do our awards from February. You guys ready? We'll fly by these because we have a special visitor today. Okay, first closings. These are from the month of February. So it just takes a couple weeks to get these, all calculated and put on the slides. So these are from February. Our first closings, give it up. Andrew Garrett, Sharon Heaton, and Shelby Ellis. So cool. First closings, those are the best. Okay, our listings taken for the month of February. We had solo agents. Angela Anderson with the winner, and then Bibiana, Cameron, and Randy, all with 2 in second place. And then our team, Sue Ann Hoffman with 7, and the Hess team with 2. Way to go. Okay, and then our groups. We have the Wild team. They had 9, Brad Morgan 7, Red Sign 6, the Kennedy group 4, and the Peter Morkel group with 3. Give it up for those groups. That is awesome. Okay, our closed units, our solos. Ooh, that was loud. Sorry. Heather Groom with 5 and Stan Lammer with 5 in the tie for first. And then Bibiana with 4, Angela Anderson, Marisol Velasquez. Sorry. Yeah. She's so adorable. Mason Smythe and Susie Clyde with 3. Holy moly. Good job. And then our team, Sue Ann Hoffman with 8, Seasons with 4, Nielsen Property Group with 3, Right Key Real Estate with 3, Fryer Homes with 2, and Your View with 2. Congratulations to those teams. And then our groups, Red Sign, these are huge numbers. 23, our Wild team with 13, Ashley Jensen team 10, the Peter Morkel group with 9, and the Villalobos group with 5. Congratulations, you guys. Sorry, I'm standing in your way, but I have to okay, I can move. The clicker is not working. Okay, Our GCI, these numbers are so awesome to see. These, you should be really proud. If you're on here, or if you're not, these are seriously such good numbers. You guys are so amazing. Okay, our solos. Heather Groom was 77,000. Stan Lammer, 49,000. Marisol, 49. BA, the one and only Bart Anthony, 47. And Susie Clyde, 44,000. Congratulations. And our teams. Sue Ann Hoffman was 78,000. Nielsen Property Group with 46. Effective Agent Team is 42,000. Seasons Real Estate, 37,000. And Your View with 34,000. That is awesome. Give it up for the teams and the solos. Okay. All right. Our last slide. GCI income, our groups. We have the Red Sign team coming in first with 165,000. Wild team, 163. Peter Morkel group, 125. Ashley Jensen team, 120. And the Villalobos group, 44,000. Give it up for those groups. Awesome, awesome job, you guys. Those are awesome. Such good numbers. Congratulations to everybody. Okay. Any ALC members have any announcements that they want to? Oh, Carl Spencer. Here. That's okay. I'll run this to you. So there's a lot of people online.
I forget. Hey, real quick, just for our More Club next month on the second Thursday. It's always second Thursday. We're actually going to be playing the cash flow game. Guys, nice and chill. I think it overlaps with a little spring break. So a little more casual that round. We'll have some lunch and do the cash flow game. So come on down here, bring your computer. You'll log in a group of 4 and just play the investment cash flow. It's a really fun game. Second Thursday, April.
Okay, second Thursday of April for the More Club. If you are not a member, you can talk to Spencer. If you are, you can talk to Carl. And if you are, you can also talk to Carl. Sorry. And there's prizes, right, Carl? Okay. Okay. Perfect. Yes, from Josh. Nice. Okay. Awesome. So if you have questions about the More Club, yeah, and it's fun and there's food, talk to Carl Spencer. All right. Our next one, this is from the events committee, Sid and Susie and I. We are doing our Keller Splash again at Splash Summit. Okay. Those are the days at BYU. We used to just go, lay out, and leave. We would never even touch the water because we lived at Belmont right there next to it. We would go, lay out, and leave. Never even got any water. We were so weird. Okay, so this is on June 7th or June 9th. I will email you. We have a little while. No one knows if you ask them on June 7th what they're doing. They don't know yet. So we're going to give it a few more weeks before we actually take orders. But if you guys have any questions, you can reach out to me. Anybody? Have anything right now? Okay, it's super awesome. Oh, Sherry Booth. Oh, come here. Yeah. Okay, so solo agents, 12:30, where? Small training room. And then they'll head upstairs to the green room because I don't know, a lot of people probably don't know this, but there is a green room here you can use for really cool marketing videos, stuff like that. So Sherry is going to get the lowdown and give you guys a lowdown of how to use that today. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Sherry and Amber, for put all that work because that's for all the solo agents. You do have, there are, other solo agents. It's fun to connect and get to know other solo agents and help build businesses together. Okay, our March Madness, we have one more week of this. I can't believe it, but there's only one more week in March. How is that happening? But there's always been a lot of people down here. It looks like they're having a ton of fun. So come next week. Okay, our trainings for this week, we had on Monday with Courtney Nilsson, find and win the buyer. Tomorrow is Dennis Davis over here. Oh, someone else. Next, what? Okay. You're not doing it? Next time. Somebody else. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we'll figure this out. Thanks, Carl. Okay. All right. Turning your database into your data bank. Who doesn't want to do that? Everybody does. And we have the two best at it, Jordan and Alex. This is on Thursday from 10 to 12 here in this room, right, Alex? Okay. Come join. Alex, and Jordan. Turn your database into your data bank. I love that. Seriously. Everybody should come to that. All right. Our team meetings. Is this next week, Dino? March 29th, 6 figures and a life. Who knew you could have both? Dean's going to tell us all about that next week. Okay, a panel. That'll be fun. All right. And then obviously we already talked about the March Madness, developing your wealth plan with Shoni on April 5th. Awesome team meetings coming up. And we really appreciate all you guys coming. It's so fun. All right. This is the SOI event this Saturday. Stephanie's going to talk about this.
Just real quick. So we arranged this SOI event for those who don't yet qualify for More Club, but because we don't have that many people signed up yet, we're opening it up. So if you scan that QR code, we've got, like less than a week away. I've done game nights where like people have come 3 times. And then last year I closed an $800,000 deal from one of those couples and a $775,000 deal. So you never know who it's going to appeal to. Yeah, Riley. So if you want to come, just like bring a dozen goodies for every 6 people that come, have them sign up through Eventbrite, and it should be fun. It's just right here. Bring board games, card games. We'll do refreshments. It's going to be easy.
I'm going to buy a basketball hoop so we can play street ball, and then also bring cornhole. And depending on how late it goes, we might barbecue as well. So
Sweet. Stephanie and Riley, that sounds fun. All right, listings. Here we go. All right. We have Erica. Erica, you here? This is Sally Price. I can't see where, but okay, this is in Salt Lake. Sherry Booth. Sherry?
Highest and best due today. We have a couple offers, 450. 2. Only 2.
Okay. North. Near Rose Park. We played them one year in football. Woohoo! Sherry. Okay. Okay. Courtney Nilsson. This is in Saratoga Springs, 485 Talons Cove. Okay. This one is in Springville. This is Angie Fisher. Angie?
It's a great house in Springville, all one level. It's got 3 beds, could be 4, and 2 bathrooms. And wait for it. Yep, the blue bathtub. It's fantastic though. It's on 1/3 of an acre. It's right by Memorial Park on Kolob Circle. So it's totally open. There's a lot of that is the fancy indoor spa, which was used every day before my clients bought it 20 years ago, but they haven't used it in 20 years. But it may or may not work. There's a whole room that takes care of it. So on 1/3 of an acre, does have RV parking, awesome backyard.
Price is $499. Okay. All right. This is in Saratoga Springs, $575. Who's this? Elaine Thompson. Okay. Awesome. We'll move on to the next.
I have upcoming a townhome in Draper and a townhome in Lehigh. Townhome in Draper, kind of in the near Riley Condor's listing that just went under contract. It'll be in the mid 5s, high 5s. Yeah, in that same complex.
Keller Williams, Westfield.
Okay, so it'll be in that complex and close to that price. And then one in Lehigh, probably at about the same price point with a newly finished basement.
Sorry, I'm not gonna be here tomorrow, so I'm taking my chance. I got a little song for all of you. I got one coming up in Pleasant Grove, single family on, I think it's on 1/5 of an acre in your in my old neighborhood. Great place to raise your children because my kids are all awesome in my old neighborhood. I think it'll be on Thursday. Awesome. 475, 435.
I've got a single family in Pleasant Grove on like almost 1/3 of an acre, 400,000, 3 bed, 2 bath, 1,800 square feet, like fantastic rental investment or starter home.
Awesome. And if you have any clients that have really big football players, we need them in PG. So please bring them. Okay. All right. Our lunch sponsor
Eller Williams,
Lunch
Westfield
sponsor?
team,
Oh, right here, Mike. Here we go. Give it up for Mike, everybody.
Hey guys, we have something extremely exciting and fun that we've been able to do. As many of you kind of knew or maybe didn't know, we had a competition in between all of the market centers between us, South Valley, the Sugar House, and Midvale offices in how many referrals could come through as fast tracks on the Intraland platform. As we kind of suspected here in Westfield, we crushed it. We totally knocked it out of the ballpark. As such, we have partnered with one of our brokers, UWM, United Wholesale Mortgage, and they, because of the amount of referrals that you guys sent through the platform, have sponsored lunch. And we'd like to play the message that we got from them.
Are winning the promotion this month. Thank you so much for the continued partnership. I really appreciate the relationship that we have all built together. Special shout out to the Intraland Elevated team. Mike and the guys have been killing it. Thank you for giving them a shot, giving them an opportunity and a chance. This is the first of many lunches provided by us and the team at UWM. I'm always available to help you on any questions that you do have. So again, thank you for the partnership. Enjoy lunch on us. Thank you. Eller Williams.
We're extremely excited to be able to do that. As you heard, we want to take advantage of what they have to offer. They're wanting to do more and more with us. So please, any questions that you've got about the Intraland platform, if there's anything that I can do for you guys, please let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Where was that video from? Where?
So that's the account representative that we have with UWM. They're out of Detroit.
Detroit. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. We are going to turn the time over to our one and only Shoni Ivins. Give it up for Shoni.
Thank you, Talina. Awesome. So thank you all for coming today. And as you know, our focus for these team meetings is really to bring as much value as possible and help support your businesses. I do really want to express how important it is for you to be the real estate economist of choice for your agents. And that means you being aware of what's happening here in Utah, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities, and how to best navigate the train moving forward and support your clients at the highest level possible. And we want to thank Randy Park for bringing our guest speaker in today. We have Becky Edwards here, and I'm going to read her bio and have her talk about some of the challenges and some of the opportunities that our housing market and specifically Utah's growth faces in 2022 and ahead. So Becky Edwards is a proactive Republican with a proven background as an effective lawmaker with a strong policy record for addressing the issues that matter to her constituents. She addresses those issues with forward-thinking, innovative ideas and determining to build a better future. During her time as a representative in Utah House of Representatives, Becky championed common sense solutions to the challenges facing Utah families. She earned wide respect in the legislature from both sides of the aisle and gaining a strong reputation for bringing people forward. Becky is married to John Edwards and has 4 children and 11 grandchildren. Is that right? And she recently served in American Samoa for 2 years with her husband as a humanitarian missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Now she is running to challenge Mike Lee in the Republican primary in June 2022 to bring better leadership, better policies, and better solutions to the U.S. Senate. So please give a hand to Becky Edwards.
All right. I love that energy. I love what's been happening here this morning. Nothing could make me want to drop out of this Senate race and become a real estate agent at Keller Williams than what we've just heard here. I don't know about that. I feel your energy, I feel your passion, and I love the dedication to your clients that I've heard through so many of these announcements this morning. Thank you for what you're doing. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about what has been happening on the state level with real estate, with affordable housing, with growth, kind of give you a sense of the landscape going forward, and what some of the things are that can happen on a federal level that I think can help support your industry and people in this community. So first of all, as Shoni mentioned, I'm running for the US Senate, but before, we're going to put that aside for a minute. And I'm going to talk to you about the 10 years that I spent in the Utah House of Representatives. Before that, I grew up in Provo, and actually the home I grew up in was sold by this good gentleman here. And my parents loved you because you listened to all of my mom's, well, past tense. No, they loved your interactions with them. That's a good clarification because you listened to what my mom's concerns are. My dad had been a BYU professor forever, and my mom really wanted the house to go to someone who was associated with BYU. And I think whether it was happenstance or any kind of like special prayers on your part, that is exactly what happened. And that made my mom so, so happy. And the home's since been sold one more time to, coincidentally, another BYU associated family, a woman who's a professor at BYU. So this was meant to be. And I appreciated your sensitivity there. And as another aside, my husband also grew up in Provo, and my dad was a BYU professor. My husband's dad was the longtime football coach at BYU. And my husband, more importantly, worked with Randy Park at Park Sportsman his entire growing up years, and feels like he is honorary Park. His name is really John Edwards Park, if you ask him. He loves that family, and those memories are near and dear and relationships. So I'm glad to be here today. After my husband and I got married, we moved around the country while he was doing his medical training, and we ended up in Davis County. And we've raised our kids there, and I've served in the Utah House of Representatives for 10 years in that area as a Republican in Davis County, and had an opportunity to work on some of the issues that are top of mind for people in that area and really statewide. And I see you're from St. George, and probably, how many of you are from Utah County here? Okay, Salt Lake County. A little in the back. Yeah, Salt Lake in the back. We'll take Utah fans. It's fine. Just don't buy 3153 Navajo. It's taken. Not now. Exactly. That house is BYU only. Anyway, so we're had an opportunity to work on issues that were really important in Davis County, but really statewide. And one of those issues was affordable housing. And as you all know, that is continued to be a big issue statewide. And when I was working on this in 2015 and 16, my tenure actually was from 2009 to 2018. And we thought the housing market was pretty tight then. And we thought this, we're pricing out it's this downward pressure on lower income folks, and people who should be buying houses at this level are pinching down into the 100%, 80% AMI market, and downward to the people who are 30% AMI. Where are they going to live? Where they have a place to live? And the housing instability was really, really a big issue. So we started to get creative, and I actually worked with the realtors in 2015 to pass a bill that created a very interesting public-private partnership. Was called Economic Reinvestment Fund, that created an opportunity for landlords, builders, developers, folks who are in that space to access funds to either refurbish or build additional units, with a special focus on our most vulnerable communities. So this is folks under 30% AMI. And you'd borrow the money from this revolving loan fund. You'd get in, you'd refurbish or build out new units, and then you'd pay it back over time. It was like a credit that interest-free. It was really innovative. It helped a lot move the needle forward, because what we found out is people want to address the diversity in our housing market. They want to address these real needs, but if you can't pencil it out at the end of the day, you cannot magically make something work if it's not going to. This provided opportunities to meet those needs. And it was in 2016, one of the top 3 priorities by the real estate, folks at the Capitol, the lobbyists who work on this issue. And it was wonderful to work with that group. We went on from there, used that energy. Let me tell you one kind of really interesting thing that we'd never done before in the state around this. When you have a rental, and you all know this, you're in the buying and selling business, but when you have a rental and one of your renters you know, creates damage in the apartment or the place you're renting, you have a mechanism to recoup those funds to rectify the situation. However, in the under 30% AMI, or a housing section 8 voucher client, you're not able to usually rectify that. You cannot receive those funds back. And so we heard from landlords, hey, I want to bring in these folks, but I cannot take that risk because if there are damages, I can't recoup those funds. So we created a special fund just for landlords to say, hey, we understand this is probably happening because we're hearing it from you, and we want to allow you to have an opportunity to rent to these individuals and also have a safeguard. So if you do have damages, that you can recoup that money. And it was called like Landlord Assistance Fund or something. And the first year of this fund, like hardly anybody, it was $500,000, hardly anybody accessed it. So the next year, the legislature, the audit committee who comes in and looks like, have you spent the money? If you haven't, we're taking it back. And we're like, no, you leave it there because that's really an important part of this. We want to make sure that people have the ability to be made whole in case of damages. And we had to really go to bat and fight for that because it mattered, and it allowed this low income community to have access to rentals. Anyway, that whole experience of working on HB 36 in 2016 ended up laying the groundwork for this commission on housing affordability. We first started with a task force on housing affordability and then moved to a full-on commission. Now, you may say, why do you need a commission on housing affordability? And why are you using the term housing affordability instead of affordable housing? Well, here's why, and you all know this. Housing affordability has to do with what your income is and what you can afford. And what is affordable for one person is going to be different than another. But you tell me if I'm right. What we had heard is that the kind of the gold standard there is you should be spending how much of your income on housing? What's the gold standard? 30%. Okay, that's what we're working on. I'm glad to know it's not like something different because I based this entire legislation on that. So 30%, that's exactly what we were working on. And that's what housing affordability means. And that's different than affordable housing. That has a lot of times people getting antsy about what does that market look like? Are these, over tight spaces with 10 stories tall. I mean, people just have like a lot of concerns about what affordable housing means in a community. But this commission on housing affordability was a large group we convened. So 30 people. So I don't know, first couple of rows here, 2 or 3 rows. It was a huge group. It included members from the real estate community, developers, landlords, apartment owners, low-income advocates, included people across the spectrum who for a really long time had been talking about each other or at each other, but not with each other. And we said, okay, come in this room, sit at this very big table, and we're going to do things differently. We're going to actually listen, and we're going to learn, first of all, and that might take a few meetings to really understand and listen to what the concerns are here across all of these industries. And then we're going to try and figure out something together that allows us to move forward on an issue that we knew at the time was a really big thing, and it has continued to grow since then. And we met twice a month for the first few months, and then once a month from then on, and we're able to move forward several pieces of legislation that allowed us to address this housing need, which you all are deeply embedded in every day of your careers. You hear those stories, you hear the heartbreak that people say when they say, I'm going to be in my parents' basement forever, I can't afford to move out. Or like a woman who serves on one of the city councils in Utah County mentioned to me the other day, she said, I have a son, he has the world's nicest girlfriend. They're waiting to get married until he can afford to have a house. And we live in, a community in northern Utah County. And she said, he can't afford to live here. And so I told him, we'll just move to Vineyard. That's where everyone's moving. You can for sure buy something in Vineyard. He's like, no, Mom, that was 2 years ago. I can't afford Vineyard anymore. So she's like, how about Salem? And she's, just moving out. And he's like, she said, finally, he found a place in Juab County. And she said, the worst part of, and I'm listening, I'm like, yeah, it's really hard. She said, no, you don't understand. The worst part is he's not going to get married. This means no grandchildren for me for the foreseeable future. So this is impacting people across the spectrum. This woman simply wanted grandkids. So whether this is someone who simply wants grandkids and let's move the next generation, let's get people on the road to family prosperity and all of the things that we know housing provides for people, or if it's a young family just simply wanting to get into their first home, we know housing affordability matters. And we know that Utah is a state in the middle of some of the biggest growth, both in the housing industry as well as population-wise that we've seen in any state across the nation. I love that you're from St. George, and you probably have an opportunity to say this numerous times a day, but St. George is the fastest growing city / county, Washington County, in the nation. This is true, right? Yeah, let that sink in. We're a big nation. We have a lot of counties in this nation and a lot of cities and a lot of people. And we have in Washington County, a city, St. George, that is the #1 fastest growing area. And I've heard that, I was just in St. George a couple of weeks ago and heard that they're anticipating St. George and that area growing to, first of all, be as big as Pittsburgh within a couple of years and as big as Atlanta. That's what they're anticipating. She's going to be living in the middle of Arizona, trying to get as close as she can to Arizona. I mean, to St. George or up in Juab County. But the point is, this growth is happening. Several years ago, when I heard the first time someone say, hey, Utah's planning on doubling its population by 2050, I thought this is one of those kind of extreme statements that people say just to get people riled up. And is it true? Well, now people are saying it's going to happen faster. So we know people are coming. It's some in growth. It's some people coming from out of the state, but people are coming. Our housing needs to reflect that. And I think the end of the message with growth is that what really matters most is having a diversified portfolio of housing options for people that really support, when appropriate in certain areas, support transit-oriented development around housing, supports that kind of market, supports supportive wraparound housing for low-income folks, support the kinds of things I'm hearing from people in West Valley City, city leaders there who are saying, we're tired as West Valley City of just being the dumping ground of all of the housing, low-income housing. She said, we have a booming economy out here. We have people who are CEOs, who have businesses in our city. They want to have that quarter-acre lot. They want to live close to West Valley City. They don't want to have to move, to across the valley to have that. We want to have options within our city boundaries. Stop dictating what we can do as a city. And this was in regards to what some of the state rules and regulations and expectations on cities were. These are really important conversations. This leads me to my next statement. Your voice matters. You're the folks who are on boots on the ground with families at the most, probably one of the most vulnerable, stressful times of their lives. You're the ones who are providing certainty for them, an opportunity for them to grow their families, be in a position that all of the secondary gains from having a home really make the impact on their lives, whether this is mental health, whether this is education. I mean, all these things are increased in their validity and their strength when someone has a home. So mental health, educational opportunities to achieve better jobs economically, and be in a position where you can grow your own career path. These are intersections of some of the heart and soul issues, and you're right in the middle of these. Your window into people's experiences help you be some of the best experts at knowing what growth should look like, the kinds of things you're hearing from people. And quite honestly, I'm not sure that elected officials are hearing these kinds of comments and these kinds of stories shared as frequently as we should. I don't know that our understanding of the kind of things you're hearing are as strong as they should. I'd love to hear 3 people right now share one story, one experience that you had this past week with somebody that told you something that's relevant about their search for a home, their worries about growth, their worries about what Utah looks like. Are we going to be a different Utah? What are the kinds of things that you're hearing just in this past week? 3 people to share. Who wants to go first? Yes.
So I helped a lady put a home under contract. She's a single mom. She's a single mom. And this is an opportunity for wealth building for her, of course, providing a home for her and her kids, competing against 16 other offers. We did end up winning the home. But one of the things she'd always look for that is just not in the realm of possibility is like having an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, because the supplemental income from that would set her up. But in her price point, that wasn't a possibility. And just because there's still, even though there was this legislation recently about ADUs, a lot of cities are trying to circumvent that. And so unfortunately for her, that we just had to find a home that she could afford barely. But that ADU income, which could even mean retirement income for her when her kids have left home, isn't, and that's a struggle. So that's the question I have.
I love that story because first of all, it's real, and second, it's relevant to the discussion in the Utah State Legislature around ADUs this year and previous years. And
she's not a landlord; she's a mom who needs an income.
Yeah, exactly. There was a hand over here. Yeah, thanks.
So mine is a single gentleman, young man. He's younger than me. He's building right now and his interest rates went up and now his payment's going to be $200 more a month. And he's heartbroken. He can still afford it, but he's like, I'm going to have roommates. Like I could afford this 2 months ago and now I can't.
Yeah. Okay, so the certainty that someone has when they start a project and the changes that go into it before they actually move in and seal those final financial deals. Yeah. Okay, last story. Back row, thank you.
My concern is more around single people who can't afford homes, and HOAs restrict them from living together because they have to be a single family that's allowed to live, as renters in a unit. So this affects investors as well, right? So is there anything the state can do about that to address or supersede an HOA saying, nope, sorry, you have to be related? Because that is a huge issue right now.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of branching into the Q&A section here, but I'm going to answer that in just a second. I want to point out a theme here between all 3 of these stories. They involve people who are unable to solve their problems because they're being restricted by government, right? Government, where was the first? Yeah, so over here, the story about the lending, that's a government decision. This is a government decision about ADUs, and in the back, the rules around HOAs. Yeah, so I know that every single one of you has some kind of a story and experience where you've run up against a barrier with legislation or even city permitting or city kinds of regulations or HOA regulations, whatever they are, that make it really hard for you to do your job. Because at the end of the day, your job is to help your clients. Your job is to make possible for them to get into a home and help their families. And this is why I hope this next part of what I'm saying really comes across to you how important your voice is, both on a state level and also on a federal level. You know, when we're talking about every single issue like this, these are not written in stone. These are not the 10 commandments. These are things that can be changed and are changed frequently by legislators who are champions of this issue and can actually make an impact, but they don't know it if you don't tell them. So your engagement really, really does matter. And I want to just share those few stories about legislation that really mattered. And I'm going to share a story about one person who really changed the mind of a bunch of legislators. Because at the end of the day, people's experiences are kind of what they draw on when they're looking at a framework to decide, do you support a bill, do you not, how can it be made better, all of these things. Well, we had a package of what we called family economic prosperity legislation. And this came from a committee that I was co-chairing with a Democratic colleague, and we had worked on these issues, and we sent a message out to all of our colleagues. If you have any pieces of legislation that relate to family economic prosperity in any way, and we had some kind of criteria of issues that kind of fit into this, let us know. We're going to have a press conference where all the press is coming, and we're just going to have like a little opportunity for you to pitch your bill, present your bill to the press. And that was one of the proudest days I've ever had in the legislature. Because as I got up there and I'm introducing, hey, this is what family economic prosperity means. It means that families and parents, and especially women, because a lot of the barriers that we were trying to address were targeted specifically to women in the workplace. We're like, we're trying to make a difference here. And I looked to the side and I could see a long line of male, female, rural, urban, Democrat, Republican colleagues of mine who were all deeply engaged in this issue. I'd never seen so many different viewpoints, different locations, different perspectives represented. And as every one of them came up, person after person, and they shared, here's my idea for a bill on affordable housing. Here's my idea for a bill that would help people on ADUs. Here's my idea for a bill that would help families and parents on high quality childcare, on workplace discrimination, anything that was in the intersection of things that mattered to them economically as a family and would prevent them from growing, flourishing, and providing for their families. I was awfully proud of that day because it showed we could work together. We see not nearly enough of that on the national level. This is one of our great areas to improve. And we're at a place where it's more important than ever that we have elected officials who are intentional about bringing all voices to the table and listening and learning. So number one, your voice matters. Please stay engaged. Back to that press conference. At the very, very end, we had a woman there who had been one of the testifiers on a piece of legislation. And she came up and shared her story because her story actually intersected with a lot of these pieces of legislation. And she shared, her name was Alex. She was from Salt Lake City, young single mom, 23 years old, living with her 2-year-old child and her older father who had a disability and was on disability. And she said, I'm the only person in my family, her family meaning her dad and her 2-year-old daughter, who has a job. In fact, I have 2 jobs. And the assumption that people in poverty are not working hard to get out of poverty doesn't apply in my case. I'm doing everything I can. I'm working 2 jobs. I'm doing everything I can to provide for my daughter and my father. And all I want is just a little help. All I want is to have some opportunities for me to succeed. I'll do the work. I'll do everything I can, but help me. She shared more details about her story, and that one story by this young 23-year-old woman, Alex, changed opinions. It changed votes. It changed perspectives of people because now the issue was real. The issue was real. So when you're talking about these 3 stories shared here, these are real to you because you know them. They're not in theory. They're not just on paper. And so it matters tremendously. Your voice matters. Your voice has made, as realtors, has made a difference in the Utah State Legislature. And together, I think we can actually make some differences on the federal level. This is one of the things I'm really looking forward to in the US Senate, is being a strong advocate and champion for this industry around growth, around housing affordability, and what Utah looks like as we continue to grow and make sure that we remain the best state in the nation to live, work, play, and prosper. And you're deeply engaged in that. I have such respect for the work you do. And I want to be in a position to be able to, in the US Senate, support National Low Income Housing Trust Fund, support the other efforts that are, the federal bonding that allows for additional 4% loans for folks who, builders and developers, to access those, to be able to get into that low income space. Because while we know that housing affordability, that is going to be a natural outgrowth of the growth we're seeing in this state, is a part of it in the middle income space, we also know to relieve pressure at any point across that spectrum, housing spectrum, is to make a big, big difference. So there are things we can do on the federal level to support, especially the low income assets, investments, and tax credits and incentives in that space. I want to be in that space to be able to help across the spectrum and to be able to help you with what you're doing. So now I'm going to turn some more time over to you for some questions. Looks like we have 10 minutes, and let's try and get in some questions that you may have, either about, in a broad sense of what is it really like to get involved in politics, in the process of policy making. What is that like? Or if you just want to share some of the challenges that you're facing in your industry, I'd love to either answer questions or hear from you both. Yeah, and usually this is what we do at a campaign event. I'm going to do it here, even though it's not a campaign event. Usually we have to incentivize people for the first question with a pin. I'm giving you this.
Oh, thanks. Was there any zoning laws recently changed or has been changed or updated that would make cities put more Section 8 housing in their city?
Okay.
Can you address that?
Yeah, really good question. And this is giving me a chance to say that sometimes the state legislature and cities actually really butt heads on issues. And I mean, I said sometimes, but it's pretty frequent. And this is one of those. Because in the same way that I think we're all aware that the federal government sort of overreaches, can overreach, and does a lot on state issues, and we're constantly saying, hey, get back in your lane, federal government. The state does the same thing with cities. And we have seen state encroachment in cities' decisions around planning, around zoning. And I think the state always says, well, that's because cities are not sovereign like a state is. We as a state created cities. And so we kind of have, it's like a back way of saying, we can also kind of control you. Here's what I'd like to see instead. I'd like to see if the state really believes that cities do need to have different zoning and different, that's more inclusionary zoning. Well, let's incentivize. Let's use a carrot instead of a stick. Let's make sure that we know what is going to be helpful for a city, and let's provide those opportunities. And one thing that I'm hearing from cities who have included high density housing in Murray, for example, one of the challenges there is they're like, we love these neighbors, we love this housing development, everything, but it's eating up our public safety resources because there's some additional challenges associated with this one complex, and everybody knows it, and the police spending way more than their the percentage of their time there. So if we're going to encourage or require high density housing in certain places, let's make sure that we provide funding for the public safety and all the other wraparound services that make that be a successful place for families to live? Really good question. Okay, another question. All right, we'll go to you then Randy.
What's your views on ESG scores and how they will impact all of us?
So ESG scores, so this is, how many of you know what an ESG score is? A few. So ESG scores stand for environmental, social governance. And it's a scoring mechanism. I'm going to kind of make this as simple as I can because it's pretty complex and it's been around for maybe 10 years, but it is like on the super upswing of pushing this out and being relevant in a lot of different areas. This is a little bit like let's see, like scoring or putting a label on a food item. Remember when organic food first came out and it was like you could just say, this is organic, this is, you know, whole grains or whatever. And as a consumer, you were like, I don't know, is it really organic? Is it not? And companies were just kind of labeling as they wished. And eventually, I can't tell if this is me making this buzzing. Eventually what happened is the FDA got involved and said, okay, if there's such a thing as organic, not if, but because there is such a thing as organic, we're actually going to have some mechanisms to secure certainty around this and consistency in that label. And so now when we go to the grocery store and we see a label, it says, you know, non-GMO, organic, whatever, we all know what that means and we have an expectation. An ESG score has to do with making sure that a product, most of my experience in this ESG scores has been around energy. So that's going to be the example that I use is what is your environmental footprint basically as a company, and consumers, this is consumer driven. Consumers want to know what is Patagonia's ESG? They say they're really good for the environment, but it's just self-reported. Are they? They have an ESG score that is self-reported. Another company has an ESG score that's also self-reported. There's no consistency. Consumers are left like, I don't know, what does this all mean? So the reason why that there's even a discussion about ESG is not just about the scoring, but the fact that venture capitalists, banking, access to capital, other things are, and now actually the SEC just has stated that any publicly traded companies are going to have a version of an ESG score put on them as well. We know that this desire to understand the complete impact of a company is coming. It's consumer driven, but exactly what that looks like, how do we have a consistent scoring? What will it do to access to capital? I don't think we know all the answers there yet. And specifically in the housing world, how will that impact the kinds of homes that are built, kinds of conversations we have in the future? I think the best thing to do is to use people who are in these industries to decide what the scoring is, make it fair, make it across the board that everyone is scored in the very same way. Let me go to Randy and then you. Yeah.
A question I've got is that Mike Lee voted not to sanction Putin, and now we're seeing the travesty and horrific loss of lives. What do you think could have been done or should we be doing now to further mitigate the losses that are occurring?
Yeah, I think as we look back on some of the actions by Senator Lee, they're deeply concerning. In 2016, 17, he voted not to put strong sanctions against the country of Russia. He also voted against putting additional supports. This is in terms of military supports and tanks and other hardware there in Ukraine. This was what's happening right now with Putin and Russia is not a surprise to anybody who's been watching this. Putin's been a bad guy for a really long time. He's also happens to be a bad guy with a, you know, nuclear arsenal. That's a really deep concern. So when they actually did infiltrate Ukraine and start to aggress in a serious way, causing lots of damage, and now, you know, millions of people fleeing the country and loss of human life, this was not a surprise. The very first thing that should have happened is strong sanctions in conjunction with our allies and partners in NATO, those other nations. Whatever the United States of America can do to support the efforts in Ukraine, a sovereign nation who is fending off you know, maniacal leader in Russia who will stop at nothing to take over first the Ukraine and every other country along that Russia border who is right now shaking in their boots. Moldova, Georgia, Belarus, they're, you know, even countries, you go deeper inland. We have some friends who live in Romania. They are scared. They're just came off, you know, pushing communism out of their country in 1990. And they're looking at, is it coming back? And we know that Putin's not reliable. So whatever we can do as Americans to support the efforts of Ukraine, and this means any kind of military support, you know, anything except ground troops. So this is missiles, this is hardware, this is anything that they need to really be able to push back on Russia. We need to be strong and work in conjunction with our allies in NATO.
Quick question. In regards to all of the people that we're hearing about Ukraine, what is your opinion? Are the people of Ukraine who really don't live in a democracy, are they more important? Are they more deserving of our taxpayer money than our own protection of our own border? And the people of this United States who are inundated with an open border policy, there's more people dying of drugs related and everything else. So my question is, which is more important to you, supporting that, or what are you doing to support our border?
Supporting the border and the issue around immigration, I think, has been an issue for a long time that Congress has continued to kick the can down the road on. We've seen irresponsible conversations within Congress on this issue, on fiscal responsibility, the national debt. I mean, you name almost executive overreach, you name almost every one of the biggest issues that this state is facing right now, and they all have a tie back to Congress not doing their job. That being said, this is not an either or. This is not either we support a strong and secure border and clamp down on illegal activities there, and I'm including, you know, coyotes, human trafficking, drugs, fentanyl, all of those things, or we support, you know, shutting down one of the communist nations that does have a nuclear arsenal. They both have an impact on our country. They both have an impact on the future lives of Americans. And what I'd like to see America be is a power that is able to actually address both of those challenges. We've had a long time to address the kind of things that are happening at the border. And I think we need to stay strong on that.
Why would you? She just answered.
Yeah. I think this is an example of when we're like having a binary choice. It's either A or B. I am an all of the above here. We have in America right now many different opportunities to address and push back on aggressions against us as Americans. The border is absolutely something that, like I say, we're waiting for Congress to do this. I'd like to see our federal delegation in Utah build on what we passed in 2010 called the Utah Compact. It brought community leaders, faith leaders, you know, business leaders across the state and said three things. Let's create a safe and secure border. Let's make sure that we maintain humanity and dignity for people going through the process legally. And then lastly, let's for real expedite and simplify the process for coming into this country legally. And that's something we agreed on in 2010. Congress has done nothing. Let's convene our 6 federal delegation members and try and move forward on this, because over and over we've seen how ineffective and dangerous it is when Congress doesn't do their job. It puts us at deep risk. We're better than this. We deserve better, and we deserve leaders in the US Senate who are productive, proactive, and inclusive in tone and in effect, who get things done, who get to work for Utah. So at the end of the day, that's why I'm in this race, is to take the mindset and skill set that I had in the Utah House for 10 years, support the very people who are boots on the ground in this state, like people in this industry. I know and appreciate what you do and how important you are to the future of this state. Thank you for what you do. And we really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And I just, again, want to reiterate how important it is for you to not only be an individual who helps your clients through the real estate process, but also understand all the factors that are impacting our real estate market. And there are some important keys that were shared today that you can utilize. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is the realization that you do have a voice. You do have an ability to impact our communities, and we do have a lot of influence. And so use that in a positive way to make a better impact. So thank you so much, Becky. Give her another hand. Awesome. And then we have Intralend, who sponsored lunch. So thank you, Intralend, and have a great week. Thank you all.